I've been told that I might be a little too negative and close-minded when it comes to the concept of reboots, remakes, sequels, or adaptations. In my defense, though, I think that the same can be said for legions of other audience members out there. However, this doesn't change the fact that my brain seems to have this built-in reaction of animosity towards expanding on an existing property. To balance things out, I've decided to make a new series of videos called From Script to Screen. Yeah, I know it's unoriginal, sue me. This is basically where I reflect on what has already been done with a particular story or character on screen, weigh in on how it fares as an adaptation of its source material, and possibly give my thoughts on what approach I would take if put in charge of a future iteration. Considering what partially inspired a certain upcoming mess, I think that now is as good a time as any to talk about one of the most popular comic book stories out there, The Dark Knight Returns. Written by Frank Miller in 1986, The Dark Knight Returns details the story of an aging Bruce Wayne struggling to deal with retirement. Seeing the crime-ridden Gotham City under attack by a new gang called the Mutants, the damaged billionaire decides to once again take up the mantle of Batman and continue his one-man war on the unsuspecting criminals. Decidedly more brutal than he used to be, The Dark Knight attracts a slew of media coverage and debates on the topic of vigilantism and morality. Soon, the Caped Crusader takes a new partner under his wing, Carrie Kelly, a street-smart teen who was inspired by Batman's heroics after he saves her from the mutants. Together, the new dynamic duo work to clean up the streets of Gotham and set an example to those willing to take back their city, which eventually brings them into conflict with the disgruntled government and an old friend. Now, you're probably thinking, hey, that sounds very familiar. That's probably because it was recently used as a source of inspiration for Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises. Wasn't that great? Well, as entertaining as that movie was, it only ever used Miller's story at certain points, never trying to be an official adaptation. That hefty task fell to Bruce Timm and the creative team over at Warner Bros. Animation, who released a two-part animated movie that faithfully emulated the original comic book to a T. We've all come to expect that kind of respect to the source material from these guys by now, right? They've been working with these characters for over 2 decades, all the way back to the days of Batman the Animated Series. On top of the typically accomplished animation and storytelling, the film also boasted a terrific voice cast. How perfect was it that they got RoboCop himself, Peter Weller, to voice grumpy old Batman? They also got David Selby of Dark Shadows fame, not that one, to give an air of weathered experience to Commissioner Gordon. The biggest surprise to me was Ariel Winter managing to bring a likable energy to the role of Carrie Kelly. I've never seen her in Modern Family because I hate that show. What didn't come as a surprise was the casting of Michael Emerson as the Joker, who added a snide sense of menace to the clown prince of crime. Look at this guy and tell me he is not perfect to play a crazy man. Despite what you may be thinking, the film itself was not built solely on star power, as the creators did get a slew of veteran voice actors like Yuri Lowenthal, Gray Delisle, and Robin Atkin Downes to make up the supporting cast. Like many other fans out there, I immensely enjoy this film and see it as one of the only examples of a story that deserves to be split into 2 movies. Seriously, do all these young adult novels really need to be milked for even more money when the majority of them aren't any good to begin with? Sorry, I went off on a small tangent. Getting back on topic, one of the only major issues with this animated adaptation is the fact that it hardly takes any risks with the story. It gives fans what they want and projects Frank Miller's tale onto the screen without really taking many liberties. In conjunction, we are still unfortunately living in a society that doesn't fully appreciate the potential for complex storytelling that animation offers. Even after the plethora of popular animated movies and small-screen gems such as Tron Uprising, Gargoyles, and Batman the Animated Series, as well as all the shows in the DC animated universe come to think of it, many people still view animation as just a medium for silly cartoons. Do you think that the everyday guy is more likely to pick up Batman Mask of the Phantasm or Tim Burton's Batman? Exactly. As much as I disagree with this assumption, this is where I think we can possibly benefit from a fresh creative team in making a live-action version. And now, for your viewing pleasure, assuming you haven't turned the video off by now, I give you my personal picks for who best to represent this story and its characters on the big screen. First, we have Ellen Yindel, the hot-headed officer who takes over as police commissioner after Gordon's retirement, and who is determined to arrest the Dark Knight for his vigilantism. Although she wants to bring Batman in to answer for his crimes, she is not meant to be a two-dimensional character. She respects Gordon as one of her heroes and is genuinely curious as to how he could support a vigilante, only fully understanding it at the end of the story. This is why I think that Emily Blunt would be an inspired choice. She has proven herself to be an extremely versatile and charismatic actress over the years, tackling everything from comedy to drama to action. Just look at her in Edge of Tomorrow and tell me she could not put a few people in the ground. She is clearly someone who can convey both the professionalism and the youthful energy required for the character. Next, there is the brutish and animalistic leader of the mutants who serves as the biggest physical obstacle for Batman to overcome. Old Man Wayne is well past his prime. The mutant leader shows him that he has to utilize his agility and intelligence rather than relying solely on his strength. When I look at this guy, one figure that comes to mind is Tyler Mane. This former wrestler's immense size and menacing presence landed him the role of Sabretooth in Bryan Singer's X-Men. Later, he was cast as the savage Ajax in Wolfgang Petersen's Troy and the brutal Antaeus in the 2005 Hercules miniseries. Although he is primarily limited to one mode, it's not like the mutant leader calls for much depth. Mane more than has the menacing presence and intimidating size to pull it off. Switching gears to the heroes, we have the female Robin, Carrie Kelly. Narratively, she represents the youth of today and how they can strive to be better. This is exemplified in Carrie's desire to join Batman on his crusade, which he accepts after seeing how smart and resourceful she is. In addition, she possesses an endearing energy and charming naivete that work well with her street-smart attitude and give her a unique appeal. I don't know about you, but I can't think of many teen or child stars that could pull this off, as most of them suck. However, one who is slowly making a name for herself is Joey King. No stranger to Batman after having had a minor role in The Dark Knight Rises, she is capable of playing emotional characters in The Conjuring and Oz the Great and Powerful, as well as giving more understated performances in works like FX's Fargo. She has proven herself to be a dedicated young actress with a surprising amount of range, combining that with an energetic charm on screen. Another vital ally comes in the form of Oliver Queen, formerly known as the Green Arrow before ideological differences with Superman cost him an arm. Similar to Batman, he is bitter at having been forced into retirement, with the difference being that he is notably more sardonic. Although he's currently played well by Stephen Amell on the TV show Arrow, this version of the character calls for an older actor who can balance the personas of the wisecracking cynic and the weathered warrior. As far as I'm concerned, Stephen Lang fits the bill. He may have been the boring baddie from Avatar, but this is someone who is certainly credible as the authoritative tough guy. Not only can he pull off the cynical camaraderie as displayed in works like Terra Nova, but his dry wit and dangerous demeanor make you believe that he can kill you with one arm, which is exactly what the role calls for. Shifting back to the villains, it's time to cast the Joker, Batman's most enduring nemesis and one of the most popular bad guys of all time. In this story, the clown prince of crime has been rendered catatonic from having no purpose in his life since the Dark Knight retired. Once Batman resumes crime fighting, though, the Joker feels like he can finally have fun again, going on a murderous rampage to draw out his quote-unquote darling. This is obviously a very twisted iteration, and one that requires an actor who can really take us places. Personally, I believe Tim Roth would be an inspired choice. After gaining widespread recognition in the Tarantino films Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, he starred as the unforgettable Archibald Cunningham in Rob Roy. Here, he truly gave us an irredeemable villain who developed an intriguingly antagonistic relationship with Liam Neeson's Robert Roy McGregor that evolved over the course of the movie. In addition, Roth is undeniably good at portraying characters who are unhinged, hostile, or both. Looking into those eyes, you instantly see the disturbing nature of whatever psycho this guy is playing. And he's such a nice guy in real life. The next one is arguably the most difficult: Superman. Due to Batman's war on crime making the government look bad, President Reagan sends the Man of Steel to either convince the Caped Crusader to go back into retirement or to put him down the hard way. This one calls for an actor who can be believable as the confidently inspiring and seemingly ageless hero, while also having a presence to measure up to the veteran actors. Feel free to disagree, but I would probably go for Matt Bomer. Originally considered to play the role in live action, Bomer was terrific as the character in the animated film Superman Unbound. He just has a personable and heroic presence that makes him ideal for maintaining the likable essence of the character, even while serving as an opponent to the primary protagonist. On the flip side, one of Batman's most avid supporters is James Gordon, who is retiring and sees The Dark Knight as just what Gotham City needs to get cleaned up. He's clearly someone who's been around for a while and is akin to a combat veteran. Hence, we need an older actor who still has the spark of life and who can give a powerhouse performance while maintaining the over-the-hill demeanor. A few years ago, I would have suggested Dennis Farina, but he sadly passed away last year after having made countless contributions to both Hollywood and the Chicago Police Department. However, one actor that has proven himself time and time again is Robert Redford. As one of the most respected actors of his generation, this guy brings such devotion and gravitas to a role that he single-handedly carried the film All Is Lost while barely saying a word. You have to admit, that takes some serious skill. No one in their right mind would question that he would do a good job as Gordon, but looking at him, you get the impression that he has garnered so much experience that you would listen to whatever he says. Finally, we come to the tortured hero of the story, Batman. Much like Gordon, this is a somewhat over-the-hill version of the character, solemnly keeping to himself in retirement and seeking a good death. Once he takes up the cape and cowl again, he feels a renewed sense of purpose and ambition that fuels his decidedly more brutal tactics. Although he is still reluctant to straight up kill people, he's definitely not afraid to break a few more bones. As such, we obviously need a commanding actor that equally balances both the dramatic and the physical. This is precisely why I choose, drumroll please, Mel Gibson. Okay, hear me out. Before you go off on the guy for his tirades and controversies, just think back for a minute. Remember all of the acclaimed contributions that Gibson has made as a filmmaker? On top of being an immensely talented actor, he actually almost played The Dark Knight at one point. After hitting it out of the park with Superman, director Richard Donner wanted to make a more serious version of Batman in the 80s, with Gibson donning the cape and cowl. Even taking out the fact that he's got the presence and the chin for it, this actor has proven his capability at playing a tortured character in Braveheart, a patriarchal figure in The Patriot, a violently crazed loon in Lethal Weapon, and a hollow, traumatized, and mysterious shell of a man in the Mad Max trilogy. Wouldn't someone with this kind of versatility, as well as the sense of hardened experience he displayed in Get the Gringo, be an ideal choice for Batman? Forget about any preconceptions you have about his personal life and look at him as an actor. I believe he'd be a good fit. Beyond the casting, there should definitely be an artistic vision behind the film, possibly updating the time period. Looking at the comic book, you can tell that it was made in the 80s. The Cold War is prevalent, and reference is made to Pearl Harbor. Gordon even compares Batman to FDR. While these may have worked in the context of the original story, do you really think that many people will respond to elements like these today? Maybe the writers could invent their own backstory or circumstances, similar to how Batman Begins had Gotham City in a depression that the Waynes helped combat. In addition, I think the overall approach should be more stylized, possibly akin to how the TV show Gotham exists in a sort of hyper-reality. This way, many of the concepts and characters would come across as more plausible if they took place in a stylized world. Also, the actual return of the Dark Knight should feel appropriately big and significant, with the music and cinematography reflecting that. Not to be too exclusive, but maybe we could get someone like Howard Shore or Patrick Doyle to compose the musical score. As the director, I might opt for Matt Reeves to bring some of the spectacle of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Alternatively, the tale may call for Martin Campbell, who directed The Mask of Zorro and Casino Royale, to turn it into a miniseries like when he made Edge of Darkness. I'm just speculating at this point. The Dark Knight Returns is a great story that has endured for years and will likely continue to garner legions of fans in the future. Like many of said fans, I would want Hollywood to take great care in adapting it to the big screen. This was my way of showing that. Obviously, I'm fairly passionate about this type of subject matter. Do you agree with the choices I made, or would you opt for something entirely different? Feel free to give your 2 cents in the comments section and let me know of any other stories that you'd like to see get a movie or television adaptation.